This might shock you, but Earth is in the middle of a mass extinction right now, and it's all thanks to us meddling humans. In fact, more than 1 in 5 species on the planet today faces extinction. And that's predicted to rise to 50% by the end of the century unless we do something about it. But what if I told you extinction isn't as permanent as you think? Thanks to the wonders of science, we might even be able to turn back the hands of time by reviving some long-lost species. So, without further ado, let's take a look at some extinct animals that might walk the earth once more. Upbeat music. The woolly mammoth. One has huge tusks, a furry winter coat, and weighs up to 6 tons. Woolly mammoths. Duh. Of course, none of us have seen these breathtaking giants in our lifetimes because they went extinct thousands of years ago. Although they were once thought to have vanished during the last ice age, a recent discovery has revealed that the last isolated colony of around 50 to 1,000 woolly mammoths actually lived on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean as recently as 4,000 years ago. And like the elephants we know today, which populate habitats like the savannas of Africa and Asian jungles, woolly mammoths could be found in the tundra, which stretched across northern Asia, many parts of Europe, and the northern part of North America. Their smaller ears, shorter tails, and extra thick coats protected them from frost, bite, and made them well adapted to these chilly conditions there. In fact, the woolly mammoth played such an integral role in the upkeep of this environment that it has also been nicknamed the mammoth steppe. Many scientists think the woolly mammoths died off when the weather became warmer and their food supply changed. Although, unsurprisingly, it also seems like pesky humans and their habit for overhunting may have had something to do with it. But could we be seeing the woolly mammoth again sometime soon? The possibility is more likely than you'd think. Over the years, a handful of well-preserved woolly mammoth specimens have been found frozen in Siberian permafrost. And these could now be the key to reviving the long-dead species. It might sound like something from a sci-fi movie, but scientists are hopeful that we might soon see animals we once considered extinct return through something they like to call de-extinction. Before we go any further, you can make sure Be Amazed never goes extinct by following these simple steps. Just hit host like and subscribe buttons and ring that little bell icon to make sure you stay up to date. After all, the world would be a bleaker place without the kind of weird, wonderful, and downright amazing content that'll keep you entertained for hours, right? Now, let's jump back in. The possibility of resurrecting species through de-extinction has become more and more likely thanks to advances in the fields of selective breeding, genetics, and reproductive cloning technologies. In the latter part of the 20th century, tools emerged that allowed scientists to isolate and analyze DNA from the bones, hair, and other tissue of dead animals like frozen mammoths. At the forefront of these advances is a handy tool for gene modification known as CRISPR-Cas9, which can be used to isolate specific traits of mammoth DNA that could then be integrated into another animal's DNA, like a super sciencey cut and paste tool. This could come in particularly useful for bringing back the woolly mammoth, because hand, well adapted to the conditions of the far north, with shorter ears and a thick hairy coat rather than a bona fide woolly mammoth. But why should we bring the woolly mammoth back in the first place? Well, it could actually have some major environmental benefits. According to George Church, the researcher heading up the Harvard Woolly Mammoth Revival Team, bringing back the giants could help convert the Arctic tundra back to grasslands that existed during the last ice age. You see, mammoths ate grasslands with the reintroduction of grazing animals. With a mammoth herd taking part in something like this, the results could indeed be astounding. But how close are we to bringing the woolly mammoth back? In 2017, Church said that we could see live woolly mammoths in a couple of years, while Dr. Tom Ellis, who's leading research into synthetic biology and genome engineering at Imperial College London, thinks it'll take at least 10 years. But things are advancing every year. In 2019, top-end de-extinction does not extend to dinosaurs yet, partly because of the extreme old age of specimens and the severe degradation of DNA over time. For that reason, we're most likely to see species revive that went extinct far more recently, like the thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger. This was a large, sandy-colored creature with distinctive dark stripes along its back, with the head of a wolf and a long, stiff tail. The thylacine was native to the Australian mainland, Tasmania, and New Guinea. The entire species wasn't enough. This thylacine is also said to have died of neglect. Having been locked out of his sheltered sleeping quarters, he was exposed to a rare occurrence of extreme Tasmanian weather, extreme heat during the day and freezing temperatures at night. And with that, the thylacine was wiped out for good, but that could all be about to change. About 750 thylacine specimens are held in museums, and most are pelts or bones with little viable DNA. But 13 young we're removing one basically means that scientists now have the genetic blueprint to resurrect an extinct animal. The thylacine genome has revealed details about the marsupial's evolution and its decline towards extinction. This is a crucial step in possible plans to clone the creature. Cloning may sound like sci-fi nonsense, but it's already proven to be a viable option. In the 1990s, a technique known as somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT, was used to produce the first mammalian clone, Dolly the sheep. Red thylacine cloning in the early 2000s. And in 2013, his team succeeded in cloning the embryos of another extinct species, the gastric rooting frog. And in 2008, a team spearheaded by Andrew Pask from the University of Melbourne were the first to take genetic material from an extinct species and make it function inside a living one by inserting thylacine DNA involved in bones and cartilage development into mouse embryos. Cloning a thylacine will be more challenging than churches project to our Yushin Goen. Now, where were we, the dodo? Gone the way of the dodo is an all-too-common sigh of remorse, uttered when yet another species joins the ever-growing list of recent extinctions. In fact, because of the rapid decline of this species, as well as its reputation for being a few sandwiches short of a picnic, the dodo bird has become a sort of a poster child for extinction. This flightless bird wasn't such a looker either. It was bigger than a turkey, weighing about 50 pounds, and had a bull, Extinction at Revive and Restore, which is an organization focused on the genetic rescue of endangered and extinct species. With the advancements being made to restore the woolly mammoth and other such creatures, the prospect seemed feasible at first. But there was one big problem: dodo DNA is extremely hard to find. All that remains of the dodo is a head and foot at Oxford, a foot in the British Museum, a head in Copenhagen, and more or less complete skeletons in various museums throughout Europe. Of endemic species are now confined to small, intensely managed reserves in predator-free satellite islands to protect them from the very thing that wiped out the dodo, invasive species. Before humans turned up, Mauritius was a haven of birds and reptiles, with a few species of bats being the only mammals endemic to the island. If the invasive mammals that have since thrived there were controlled, the dodo might just stand a chance of survival. Scientists have already been toying with the extinct in the late 1600s, following the arrival and proliferation of the Maori people in New Zealand, who saw the moa as easy hunting targets with plenty of meat on them. At the same time, habitat loss and impacts associated with other introduced species further helped to seal their doom. But, having been gone for well over 700 years, it seems like there might be hope yet for these big old birds. That's because scientists at Harvard University have been able to assemble the first nearly sequence hundreds of thousands of strands of DNA all at once. In another sister study, they used the little bush moa genome, along with other DNA data, to determine that moas are most closely related to kiwis, emus and cassowaries. The fact that all three of these birds are still living opens up a world of possibilities. Resurrection of the moa would require a little more genetic tinkering of the DNA, extracted from the museum specimen and an egg from a living species that the genome could be might remain in the land of the dead for now, but it's safe to say we shouldn't count them out just yet. Siberian unicorn. What if I told you unicorns once walked among us? I'm not talking about the graceful creatures from children's books. I'm talking about a totally different beast, the Siberian unicorn. Besides the enormous horn on its nose, this creature, which roamed the grasslands of Eurasia, shares very few similarities with its fictional counterpart. Instead, the Siberian unicorn the hulking animal was originally thought to have become extinct between 200,000 and 100,000 years ago. Radiocarbon dating of a total of 23 bone specimens by an international team of scientists found the Ice Age giant in fact survived in Eastern Europe and Central Asia until as recently as 36,000 years ago. That means it roamed the earth among early modern humans. Surprisingly, though, humans likely had nothing to do with their extinction. Instead, new evidence shows that the hefty beast may have the Siberian unicorn was not closely related to modern rhinos, contrary to popular belief, but was a unique lineage that split from the line that led to modern rhinos over 40 million years ago. Scientists now hope that knowing more about the extinction of these animals could help save the remaining rhinos on the planet. There are only 5 species of rhinoceros alive today, and they are notoriously picky about their habitat. What we've already learned about the extinction of the Siberian unicorn was because none have been found. However, part of the skull where the horn would have grown has been recovered and has inspired estimates that it may have been up to 1 meter in length. How much more we can learn from these magnificent creatures depends on the amount of DNA that can be recovered. If a perfectly preserved specimen, like the woolly mammoths, were found frozen in ice, for example, scientists might be able to successfully sequence the full genome, which would offer the first steps of but vanished around 1900. And like the pigeons of today, which are generally considered pests, passenger pigeons, whose numbers are estimated to have reached nearly 5 billion at the start of the 19th century, played a dramatic role in shaping the forest they inhabited. Their numbers were so great and their droppings so prevalent and flammable that they destroyed trees and increased forest fires. I know that doesn't sound like much of a positive thing, but hear me out. After the passenger pigot and eliminated the large forests that the pigeons depended on, at a time when the pigeons were already dying out, 250,000 birds, the last big flock, were shot in a single day in 1896. That same year, the very last passenger pigeon was observed in the wild in Louisiana. It was also shot. Way to go, guys. Thankfully, we might be able to make amends with these seed-spreading birds. Passenger pigeons were as essential to the forest they inhabited as woolly mammoths were to the tundra. So bring into of getting the hybrid cell to grow in a surrogate, hoping the genes work harmoniously together. Bringing the bird to term and hoping it acts like the extinct species, even though it was raised by a modern relative. Still, Novak is hopeful. If his team secures enough funding, he says, there's no reason we can't have the first generation of passenger pigeons by something like 2022 to 2025. So keep your eyes on the skies. Sabertooth Tiger, if you've watched the Ice Age movies, you know intimidating size. Clocking in at around 5 feet long and up to 620 pounds, and those extremely sharp canine teeth. The extinction of the saber-toothed tiger also happened to align with the period when humans started to make huge strides in hunting technology. Although they may not have hunted them for food, they may have killed them for sport using simple projectile weapons. Over the years, scientists have uncovered a number of saber-tooth skeletons and fossils. In places like the La Bretarpe and approach saber-tooth proportions, considering saber-tooths existed at the same time as woolly mammoths, and would even have eaten the occasional small mammoth. Resurrecting these predators isn't out of the question. If more complete and well-preserved specimens are found frozen in the Siberian permafrost, these could allow scientists to extract DNA and successfully sequence the genome needed to revive the species. Of course, the next step would be to determine which living relative could act. Extinction is not always the end. Which of these extinct animals would you most like to see brought back? Why not check this video out? It's about supposedly extinct animals people have caught on camera. Thanks for watching, guys. Bright music.